Mm.
Hi guys, greetings. Please, if you are a co-host, you'll be helping me to moderate the meeting by muting people and accepting people into the meeting. Chinechere, Mr. Austin Otuji, you are a co-host. Um, Chinechere, you are a co-host.
Okay,
And
sir. Good evening, bro.
okay, so and some other people. So our instructors here. Um, yeah, let me pin him.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Do you welcome? Do you have slides that you're gonna share? You're
No, no,
sharing.
it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
The right. Um, sorry, a minute, please. Pin.
Can I change my name here? Profile, 1 second. Yeah. So you've
Okay.
already had.
Yeah, we're waiting for you. So we just here and we can start if you're ready.
Is it already
Yeah, it's
streamed
fine.
on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm streaming on YouTube right now.
Okay.
So, guys, thank you and welcome for the day 5 of our educational program. If you've been hearing the word transhumanism, using science and technology to transcend biological difficulties and deficiencies or challenges. You should know, if you're familiar with transhumanism, you can't tell me that you don't know Professor Stephen Harris. He is a big player. I started reading him for, let's say, 5 years ago. So I think sometime Chogu Abdul told me about his works, and I've read some of his project. I think I contributed in one of the books that he published. Stefan is a philosophy professor at John Cabot University in Rome. He is the director and co-founder of the Beyond Humanism Network, a fellow at the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technologies, research fellow at the
Iwa, Iwa.
Institute for Humanities. So I think there is so much that I can say about him. I will allow him to tell us a little bit about his background, his opus magnum at the center of his ideas, and other things. Then we get into the conversation. I'm here with my pens and paper to learn so much from him. He is a very swift and sweet thinker, and I'm excited to be part of this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for that kind introduction. It's a really great pleasure to be with you here tonight. Yes, no, I've been dealing with transhumanism for more than 25 years, actually. In 1999, I first became familiar with transhumanism, and then I sort of developed it further and got more and more involved step by step. And yes, sort of my approach was initially sort of developed. In particular, it was a paper from 2009 on Nietzsche, the overhuman and transhumanism. And from that time onwards, I developed a particular sort of continental European strand of transhumanism. I'm currently finishing my new book project on entitled Euro-transhumanism, which will be out in the spring of 2026, which Euro-transhumanism describes sort of my own situatedness. It's not a Eurocentrism. It sort of just describes sort of my own situatedness in being in continental philosophical thought, in particular in Nietzsche. And yes, one of the central aspects of transhumanism is, and this is sort of the one feature basically all transhumanists can subscribe to, is that undoing aging and increasing the human health span, that is the central feature. That is something which needs to be promoted, because this usually goes along with an improved capacity of living a good life, because we all cherish health in some way, either intrinsically because health is something which is intrinsically good, or it's good as a means because it's helpful, because it enables us to do the things we really enjoy doing. And that's why I so much appreciate your various endeavors insofar that, increasing the health span is being promoted, because that's really something which is central for the quality of life of all persons, and at least most people. And there is very good psychological studies are available which clearly highlight, for example, someone in the US, there was a psychological survey took place, where they asked, so if you are 120 and you're fully healthy, would you want to continue living? Would you want to continue being alive? And 80% of the people asked said, yes, of course I would want to be alive. And this sort of shows, and similar studies can be found in various parts of the world. And this basically shows, there's a great diversity, different concepts. So there's a great diversity of different concepts of the good life. However, the one thing which basically the majority of all people subscribe to, that living longer healthily is something which which usually increases the quality of life. So 80% in that study said, even if they were 120 and if they were healthy, they would want to continue living. And I was surprised that actually not more people said yes, but 80% is already an incredibly high percentage, because usually when asked concerning all the other questions, concerning other qualities, it is not the case. Not so many people agree upon that this is actually equality. There's such a great diversity of different concepts which go along with the good life, but increasing the health span is the one thing which most people agree with, and that's why I think it's Afrolongevity is such a wonderful endeavor, because it really increases the quality of life of the people. One of the central features is sort of for increasing the health span is sort of a mechanism called predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is an engineering technique which used to be applied on planes. Why is flying so safe? Because of predictive maintenance. So there are various sensors in all the planes, and they basically show when some device is malfunctioning, and not when it's malfunctioning or dysfunctioning at the moment, but basically based on a lot of data, we can predict that a certain part of the engine, for example, will most likely be malfunctioning within 6 months. Or one can say there's a 20% chance of a specific device in an engine becoming dysfunctional within the next 6 months. It will probably be very safe still to fly for a couple of months, but because we want to be safe, because we want to make sure, not to crash, that's why the engineers then decide, let's have this part exchanged in order to really not be worried when getting onto the plane. And this is sort of a standard procedure, and that's why flying has become an incredibly safe technique of transportation. And now we're developing a similar technique for human beings, the predictive maintenance of human health. And what is needed for that is basically in the same way as what's happening on the plane, where various chips, RFID chips, are being placed in the engine in various parts of the plane. Now these RFID chips are wandering into our bodies, and we can measure various aspects of our, from blood pressure, from to all the various elements basically which occur in our body can be measured, and the more complete, the more comprehensive picture we get of the various types of functioning in our bodies, we can guarantee a predictive functioning, a predictive maintenance of human health. And that's what already has been applied, not only by means of RFID chips, but with respect to high blood pressure. High blood pressure used to be such that, with 160 to 100 or 110, it used to be still fine up until that measure. It was not regarded as a high blood pressure. But recently, physicians have basically redefined what being healthy means, and so they basically said, no, it needs to be 130 to 90. So it was a redefinition what counted as being healthy, and as a consequence, people start taking medication in order to get their to get their blood pressure down, and as a consequence, the likelihood of strokes and heart attacks is basically reduced. And that is a similar procedure which can also be referred to as predictive maintenance of the human health. So what is needed for that? In both of these cases, both in the case of the engine as well as the case of high blood pressure, we need digital data. We need a lot of data in order to get an understanding concerning the correlations between sort of blood pressure and the likelihood of strokes and heart attacks, and how they affect our body, how they affected the engine in the case of the airplane. And this is the central question we need to tackle. It is, and what is currently taking place already, it's a global war for digital data. It is basically all the big players, they might claim, Elon Musk and friends, they might claim that, superintelligence is wiping. There's a risk of superintelligence being an existential risk. All of that is not, that is not the case. This is not really any pressing fear for the time being. But what is really an issue, sort of who owns the infrastructure, who has access to our very personalized digital data, who basically creates the measures. So where are the companies located which basically create these digital devices? And so far we've got like a lot of different players. In particular, the United States and China, they seem to be the most relevant players for the time being. So in the United States, we've got a libertarian model. And basically, you need to basically sign up to X and Facebook and Twitter now, and Meta and Google and all the various devices, Instagram, and basically whenever you're signed up, they basically get hold of a great amount of digital data, and then afterwards the companies trade by digital data from other companies. They exchange data, they sell the data. So we are the product, or we are the free workers working for the CEOs of the big tech companies, and they're collecting the digital data and they're using these digital data, in order to gain additional power and financial gain. So digital data is or are the new oil. In the same way as oil used to be related to power and money and influence, nowadays it is connected to digital data. Oil used to be limited, it's a natural substance. Digital data, on the other hand, it's intellectual property. So there's a global war for digital data taking place. So one of the players being United States. The other big player, which now seems to be even more efficient, is China. And China has an authoritarian regime. They might even be more efficient in collecting the digital data because they basically have the legal right. They force every company who works within China to share the digital data with the government. So unless you're willing to share the digital data with the government, you cannot work within China. And around China, they don't only have the big wall, but they also have a firewall, basically. They can govern, they can direct, and they can decide whoever works and functions within China. But with TikTok, with Huawei, with Alibaba, they also got global companies, and basically they are collecting the digital data globally, and then they change it. Then they also are obliged in the end, whatever gets changed, to share the results with the government. So that's an even more comprehensive way of collecting digital data. In addition, every company is forced to do so, unless every company is forced to share the data with the government. So it's an even more efficient way of dealing with digital data than what takes place in the United States. And we need to bear in mind that basically China 70, 80 years ago was an extremely poor country. And as a consequence of changing their entire setup structure, they now become extremely innovative, and it seems very unlikely, very difficult to even imagine that any other country can keep up with them. So China is the most decisive, the most important player when it comes to collecting digital data. And all the rest of the world, and this also, I mean, this applies, for example, to Europe. Europe has decided upon a GDPR, a General Data Protection Regulation. They made it really difficult, comprehensive data collection in Europe, and as a consequence, it becomes really difficult to collect digital data in Europe, in the European Union, and that has really strong economic and political and scientific consequences. The interesting thing now is because we talk about Afrolongevity, we talk about what about Africa? And here, what seems particularly interesting is that there's enormous interest from the side of China with respect to various African countries. When we need to acknowledge that the salaries go up in China and products can no longer be produced as cheaply as it used to be the case when China was still extremely poor only a few decades ago. However, they focused on innovation and the latest technologies and were able to realize enormous economic growth. Now, cheaper workers, lower energy costs, as well as reduced expensive for logistical purposes are needed in Chinese companies. And all these goals can be realized in various African countries. The salaries are cheaper, the sunlight can be used as an energy source, and the costs for transporting goods to Europe are much lower than from China. In addition, many African countries have an important natural resources to offer to. So I'm just giving the overall picture now before coming to health in particular. So over a third of China's oil comes from Africa, so does 20% of the country's cotton. Africa has roughly half of the world's stock of manganese, an essential ingredient for steel production, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo on its own possesses half of the planet's cobalt. Africa has also significant amounts of coltan, which is needed for electronics, as well as half of the world's known supply for carbonatites, a rock foundation that's a primary source of rare earth. It's a widely shared conception that the natural resources are the prime Chinese motivation when it comes to their interest in various African countries. And again, it's simply another story of colonialism and exploitation. However, the issue is much more complex, and the following insight needs to be noted. The proportion of Chinese FDI into mining, which is 21% in 2020, is far lower than that of other countries like the UK, France, and US. UK was 43%, 43% also for France, and 37% in the United States in 2019. So it's not the case that the natural resources do not play any role, but the other factors mentioned before, like cheaper workforces, play at least an important role as the natural resources, if not a significantly more important one. To build and run companies and to produce goods, what is also needed is a developed infrastructure and a high level of education. And China is involved in many related projects. The central players in many of Africa's biggest ticket infrastructure projects, including the 12 billion coastal railway in Nigeria, the 4.5 billion Addis Ababa Djibouti railway, and the 11 billion megaport and economic zone at Bagamoyo, are being developed via Chinese partnerships. So education is another field which doesn't remain untouched by China. For a long time, it has been the case that China also supported African countries that opted for communism and positioned itself as a global moral role model. Yet it also needs to be noted that since 2000, China's credit scholarships and grants to Africans to study in a tertiary institution have increased to about 61,000. Over the same period, China has increasingly made its presence in Africa more visible by establishing more than 54 Confucius institutes and 27 Confucius classrooms across the African continent, according to the 2018 edition of Quartz Africa. Both CIs and CCs are major instruments designed to promote the Mandarin and Chinese culture in Africa. The South China Morning Post reports that China has been highly successful in creating a cultural footprint across Africa, the world's fastest growing continent, through its Confucius Institutes. And it's important to know that as a continent, that's the world's fastest growing continent. And this is why it's so important also to focus on that. Furthermore, recent studies also support the judgment that the aspect of cheap renewable energy is also relevant for the Chinese to investing in various African countries. One peculiarity of Africa's renewable energy sector is a rapid increase and likely future growth of Chinese involvement in large-scale renewable energy infrastructure projects. Insights from other infrastructure, utility, and resource extraction sectors in sub-Saharan Africa suggest that China is pursuing a specific Chinese model of investments characterized by enclave characteristics, including finance, turnkey project developments, and the importation of labor and equipment from China. All these previously mentioned insights reveal a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, what gets imported is a Chinese culture, which implies hierarchical and paternalistic structures, and the right of morphological freedom does not seem to receive any consideration within Chinese cultural structures. On the other hand, what seems to be promoted are the sustainable renewable energy sector, a functioning infrastructure which can bring about lasting changes and, most importantly, an increased level of educational options. The realization of these changes might have a significantly stronger and lasting impact than the various developments and projects which Western countries have implemented in previous decades. So if a complex infrastructure with a sustainable renewable energy sector can be realized, the foundation for a productive environment was realized. Due to the relevance of this sector for central global challenges like global warming, the options for exporting these technologies and further growth are enormous. Given the initial implementation of companies with the support of China, the possibility of local spin-offs can be realized, in particular if the educational sector gets promoted further, such that human resources are available which can bring about such projects and put together successful spin-off companies. A challenge which remains is that of a cultural and financial dependency from China. Various African countries have already reacted to specific attempts of creating such dependencies. For example, it all started in July 2020 when a Kenyan high court ordered the cancellation of a $3.2 billion contract between Kenya and China for the construction of the Standard Gauge Railway, saying the project was illegal because the state-run Kenya Railway failed to comply with the country's procurement laws. Also, Ghana last year scrapped a $236 million contract with Beijing Everyday Traffic and Lightning Tech Company to develop an intelligent traffic management system, and the Democratic Republic of Congo is reviewing a $6 billion mining deal with Chinese investors, Reuters reported last month. So at the same time, it must also be noted that a better infrastructure, a higher quality education, as well as functioning renewable energy sectors would also go along with some social prerequisites which are of enormous relevance for most human beings, like a well-functioning healthcare sector. So I'm now coming to the healthcare sector. And most human beings identify an increased health span either intrinsically or instrumentally with a better quality of life. It's actually the health sector in which there has already been a long-standing cooperation between China and various African countries. Health is one of the oldest forms of engagement between China and Africa, dating back to the 1960s when the first Chinese medical arrived on the continent to provide direct care to African people, build local capacity, train healthcare personnel, and construct hospitals, ultimately serving as a tangible expression of solidarity among developing countries against colonial and imperialist powers. Health cooperation at that stage fed into Chinese anti-imperialist discourse, helping Beijing to consolidate its networks of regional partners. When the first forum on China-Africa cooperation took place in 2000, showcasing China-Africa relations to the rest of the world, health appeared in both the FOCAC Declaration and Action Plan, the two official documents issued after each FOCAC. So the focus on the health sector appeared rather limited in content and relatively low in the priority list, the last of the 10-point statement. Its soft power dimension, that means Chinese long-held solidarity towards Africa, was crucial in counterbalancing the rise of a new, perhaps less benevolent logic of interaction based on economic interests and achieving the associated foreign policy objectives. And this development has even been intensified in more recent times. Beijing managed to achieve a number of objectives during the COVID-19 pandemic, somehow reinforcing its health strategy. The distribution of vaccines exemplifies this. Donations of Chinese vaccines to Africa are significantly lower than commercial sales. 6.7 million donations versus 47.5 million vaccine purchases. But Africa remains the second largest recipient of Chinese COVID-19 vaccine donations worldwide, after the Asia-Pacific region, which takes up to 65% of the total share. showing Beijing's commitment to help the continent. At the same time, out of the 33 million doses delivered to Africa thus far, half have gone to China's strategic allies. Morocco, 16.5 million, followed by Zimbabwe, 4.4 million, Egypt, 4.1 million, and Algeria, 1.8 million, with the delivery gaining momentum over the last few weeks. By mentioning the vaccinations, I merely stress the Chinese interest in being connected to the African countries, the entanglement between China and Morocco and some other countries. It should not be much of a surprise that China is interested in Morocco, given the geopolitical importance of the country. It is connected to the Mediterranean Sea as well as the Atlantic Ocean. If goods get produced there or they arrive there from other African countries, they can easily be shipped further either to one of the Mediterranean countries or to the Netherlands, the UK or the Scandinavian countries. And the goods can be produced cheaper due to lower salaries, renewable energies, as well as cheaper logistical costs. It makes an enormous difference whether you have to transport tablets and smartphones from China to Europe or from Morocco. So here we see really a strong geopolitical motivation. From what we've realized in these reflections, there's a complex entanglement between China and various African countries, which has been intensified significantly in most recent times. It's closely related to ethical, political, and cultural issues concerning emerging technologies. And there are various serious challenges which go along with these developments, which have to do with paternalistic structures. And these are serious issues. Yet it depends upon the force and relevance of these structures on how problematic they are. However, given the relevance of technological innovations for the economic, political, and entrepreneurial flourishing of a country, an enormous potential for sustainable changes have to be noticed too. Given the enormous relevance of digital data and the variety of industries which are related to the processing of digital data, all these developments might promise a flourishing future for the countries in which these innovations get implemented. Because here we see sort of the infrastructure is being built, the education is being promoted, and as a consequence, that enables sort of the digital infrastructure and as well as the collecting of digital data. So digital data are power, and the countries which manage to collect the data most efficiently seem to have the most promising outlook for a flourishing future. Silicon-based transhumanists talk a lot about implication of digitalization, whereby topics like mind uploading, digital consciousness, as well as simulation argument are discussed most open. But all these topics are fun to talk about, and they can enable intellectuals to get a clearer understanding of who we are and how we relate to others. However, from a pragmatic perspective, none of these issues is of any relevance. If one takes the issues that a sufficiently developed general AI will put humans into a zoo too seriously, it distracts us from being focused on the philosophical issues which are enormously pressing relevance. It seems to me that the following question is the most central one, and it's this issue which gets highlighted by Eurotranshumanism. How can we collect and use digital data in a democratic manner? As digital data of central relevance for scientific, technological, as well as political endeavors. It is already the case that Chinese scientists publish more peer-reviewed articles than US American scholars. There is no surprise as data are needed for studies in social sciences, the natural sciences, as well as engineering. So China can collect data within China as well as outside of China. US American companies cannot collect the data so easily, as they cannot simply legally force people to share their data with them. And this is the reason why the financial, scientific, as well as political flourishing of China seems to be extremely likely in forthcoming times. Given the enormous interest of China in selected African countries, it seems likely that it will have some promising spillover effects for these countries concerning education, infrastructure, as well as employment. And so that particular concerns the tech industry, but also as a consequence, the enormous relevance of the medical industry, the health industry. These developments also be sustainable as they are related to some long-term decisions, changes, and investments. Will this be in the long-term interest of the countries like Morocco? This issue is a separate challenge, which is related to the question, which interest is most relevant? Is it freedom or financial well-being? How successfully will China manage to import their own cultural structures into the above-mentioned African countries? Concerning education, infrastructure, sustainable energy, healthcare, employment, and related issues, the Chinese investments seem to be in the interest of the countries mentioned. The question still needs to be analyzed as the following. What will be the implications concerning the political, cultural structures which get imported in the same time? And so the central issue is, so we build, what gets built here is sort of the infrastructure, the education which gets promoted, and various other aspects. And however, sort of who basically has the right then to collect the data? And here we need to question the data, because the data in the end is a driving force for developing the drugs. Is a driving force for actually turning it into finances, which can be used then to pay, for example, a universal healthcare system, for promoting the health in the various countries. However, what is important to realize why China and the United States are so successful, because size matters. It's how big the countries are, and that they manage to collect the data basically in the countries, but also outside of the countries, because they've got like some global possibilities with the tech companies in the United States, but as well as with TikTok and related companies in China. And we've seen that China became from a very poor country to a leading player in like within 70 years. The same applied to South Korea. They were poorer than North Korea only 70 years ago. So, but they really refocused. And the question is, what can be done here? What are some central suggestions and factors when it comes to undoing aging? Promoting the health span in various African countries, when taking the relevance into data into consideration. So one of the issues is to establish regional data trusts. It could be create multinational non-profit data custodians across the African Union to hold and govern sensitive health and genomic data collectively, preventing exploitation by foreign entities. Another issue to consider could be to mandate data localization, to legislate that all health and genomic data collected from citizens must be stored and processed primarily within the countries or regional blocks borders. So just to hold on, because digital data are oil and it needs to be guaranteed. One needs to get together to form a union like the European Union. Only together the European Union has got the potential sort of to being an important player. The same applies to could be like the African Union. Implement data transfer taxation to levy a tax or fee on a transfer of raw aggregated health data out of the country to fund domestic research and development and data infrastructure improvements. Maybe fund open source electronic health records, invest heavily in unifying data collection standards. If we unify the data collection standards, it's easier to basically analyze the various data which get collected. To sponsor local genomic mapping projects, government-backed initiatives to sequence and analyze the country's unique genomic diversity domestically, reducing reliance on foreign-led biobanks. Because it's important. I mean, it makes a difference if someone's a man or a woman. It makes a difference whether someone's in India, in Honduras, or in Botswana. So the more data we have from the various locations, the better we can treat the health and deal with prolonging the health span also in Botswana or Nigeria. Develop AI ethic committees, establish national AI ethic bodies to review and regulate the use of machine learning models in health and longevity research, just to ensure that algorithms are non-discriminatory and that sort of fairness is guaranteed. Health span equity, and investment need to be guaranteed. So prioritize longevity minimums, like shift public health spending to priorities by basic health drivers, universal access to clean water, sanitation, malnutrition reduction as a most fundamental form of health span expansion. Sort of like a certain minimum needs to be guaranteed, and that needs to be taken care of. Establish universal primary health care access, ensure basic standard of preventive and primary care is accessible to all citizens, reducing the environmental infectious disease burdens and accelerates aging. Incentivize domestic biotech investments, offer tax breaks, grants, and expedited regulatory approval for local startups and universities focused on developing health technologies and therapeutics specific to local endemic diseases. Create South-South research and development alliances, form research and development partnerships between nations and the global South to share knowledge, infrastructure, and jointly fund biotech projects circumventing reliance on northern entities. Launch national digital health literacy programs, invest in public education campaigns to ensure citizens understanding the value of their health data, their rights, and how safely interact with digital health tools. Once we have collected the health data, and that needs to be, we've got the infrastructure, we need to, that not China only has access to the data, for example, if they help establishing the infrastructure, need to make sure that also the data becomes available locally, because data is in the end sort of the currency. And with the currency, you can support research and development of drugs. You can support the analysis of the genomes in the various locations. Then the ethical governance and regulate foreign data collection, impose strict licensing and oversight requirements on all foreign entities, tech companies, universities seeking to collect health or genomic data locally. Then maybe with the mandatory data sharing agreements, you need to make sure that the data also, gets stored in local data centers and gets owned. Sponsor bioethics curriculum in education, introduce mandatory bioethics and data ethics education from secondary schools through a university, building a local expertise based for future policymakers and researchers. Develop a Pan-African regulatory agency, create a centralized respecting regulatory body similar to the FDA to fast-track the approval of regionally relevant medicines and health technologies, maintaining high safety standards. Formulate a national longevity strategy, create a holistic long-term government plan that integrates health, education, and economic policy to systematically increase the health life expectancy, the health span of the population. To encourage pluralistic biofutures discourses, host national and regional public forums and dialogues that explicitly discuss different visions of the future of humanity and technology, like Afrofuturism, on many transhumanist approaches, which have been upheld by, friends of mine, for example, from Nigeria, Leo Igwe, for example, or Jokwu. And also like entering in the discourse with classic transhumanism or with the Euro transhumanist approach, not in order not to promote new colonialism, but to promote the exchanges for new stimulation, but basically what the wonderful event you're currently hosting. And on such a basis, we can develop an informed sovereign policy direction, because that needs a proper intellectual engagement. So a lot can be done in particular, but one needs to make sure digital data are the new oil, and data collection infrastructure make sure the local data gets collected and stored. And once it's stored, once it's available, that's a good grounding for actually promoting, selling the data. And selling the data is a way to generate a lot of money, again, which can promote in the end the research development locally in countries, and as a way also to basically fund a very well functioning universal healthcare system in the countries, or just more basic issues like education, clean water, sanitation, and so on. And so we need to shift how to properly use digital data. So basically that it's not the case that the data simply flows to China in order to support an authoritarian system, or that it flows to the big tech companies in the United States, which makes the CEOs of these companies richer. So my pledge is, in order to properly promote Afrolongevity, is to rethink the meaning of digital data. So many thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Prof. I really appreciate, this is your thing. You know how to, you've been lecturing for years, and you practically know what we really want and how we really want what we want and where to pay attention, because I always tell people during my MBA program, I argue that the best industries, we've not created the best industries in Nigeria. We've not created the best industries in Africa, right? So recall when I was making a pitch somewhere, I told them that we have enormous opportunities in the healthcare sector. By that I mean, health data is poorly utilized in Africa. People are coming to Africa to mine. In the Health in Daba conference that I attended, I saw a whole lot happening, with regards to pharmacodevelopment and all that. And people are coming to Africa to do clinical trials, not just for Africa, so that they can produce medication outside Africa without proper bioequivalence and sometimes substandard. And because we are literally biased and we don't validate anything that comes within Africa unless it is external. So we tend to buy in and then make use of those things. And people are using our data, which is very wrong. And which is why I'm encouraging people to really come into the Afro-longevity to understand what is happening in the transhumanist community, in the longevity community, the singularity community, so that we can start looking for a creative way to develop proper omics technology, proper biobanks, proper data for us to even streamline things like in Nigeria. Now, if you want to do a research, we did a research in the past, I with some professors from Europe and America on date data, and we struggled. And it was like a demonstration that we cannot easily say that we have 100 centenarian or 200 super centenarians in Africa or across Africa and all that, which is evidently a huge problem. But if we start with what we have, the roadmap that we have in Afro longevity, I think we are going to achieve that. But before I let people ask their question, because we're going to ask few questions, I would like to ask my first question, and then I open the floor for questions and interaction. My first question goes to, given the global imbalance in biomedical data, where Africa contributes the least but suffer the highest mortality, how can African nations avoid becoming victims of data colonialism as longevity technologies advance, and what philosophical frameworks protect African autonomy in health data governance?
Yeah. And that's an absolutely central question. And sort of I was trying to, already hint at that in my presentation. Yeah, the data colonialism is sort of the biggest is the biggest challenge. And so let's see. What I was suggesting at the end was, what I was suggesting in the entire paper was, look, there is enormous interest in various African countries. For example, I was focusing on China. There's enormous interest. The salaries are getting too high in China, and the transport cost to Europe, to the United States, is much cheaper if the transport takes place, for example, from Morocco. And the goods get produced in various African countries. So there's an enormous, it's an interest on the side of the Chinese to actually start companies, create companies within various African countries. So they build the infrastructure. They also need to build the infrastructure, and they need to build and they promote sort of the educational sector, which is great, which is also helpful for the various countries. However, and then the various countries must understand, look, we actually have quite some power. Because the Chinese want to build these things in our country. the countries maybe also getting together, forming various African countries getting together, forming much more of an alliance. If you want to enter here, if you want to build your company, you need to respect our rules. And our rules are you cannot simply export the data which get generated in Nigeria, for example. It needs to be a legal mandate that the data which get produced, like in which the Chinese collect by means of, within Nigeria, they cannot simply extract it and take it over to China, but they at least have to be shared within with the Nigerian health, for example, healthcare institute. So mandating by stressing the relevance. Okay, you're doing the investment. Look, the Chinese, you're doing an investment because you really have a strong inclination. You have some strong motive why you're coming here. But we are not the ones who just solely need to obey it. We are not the ones who need to say yes to everything. Because of your interest, we can impose rules upon you too. We can impose mandates upon you too. So, for example, sharing the data, or for example, if the data get exported, then you need to pay then the Chinese or the big tech companies, the big tech or medical companies from the United States. You need to pay taxes if you export on the data, if you export sort of insights generated within Nigeria, within Botswana. So realizing your own strengths and the enormous interest these countries have in actually producing, doing research and the rest in your country, and by means of legislation, you manage to to build local data centers, creating enormous storage space with information concerning the difference and the diversity of local gene data, for example, or medical data. And it's this way you can sort of turn the page and really and start building an enormous big data collection center, which then can be the basis for realizing correlations between data and between genes and health and various other factors, which again would contribute to the longevity research. Another issue, so getting together various countries, implementing new legislations, and it probably needs to be the case that sort of one needs to enforce, to guarantee that local data, maybe within a union of various countries, basically they get collected, because one needs to realize digital data are power, are the new oil. So the more data you manage to collect, and you manage not simply to give away to like the US or China, this is basically the basic stock. And it's Africa is the fastest growing continent, so there's an enormous amount of digital data which gets produced, and that can be monetized by collecting the data. And on that basis, once you've got the data, you've got generate insights. You can generate, health data, treatment data concerning treatment data concerning making predictions. And on that basis, you can generate the money for making research, for providing education, as well as research and development in medicine. So it is understanding one's own strengths, and then basically trying one's best to collect the data and using the data in your own interest. I think that's what the best one can do in that context.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Before I continue with my question, anyone with a question, if you have any question, please just put up your hand or type in the comment section.
He's asking us to get done right away because the speaker's on the phone.
Yeah, if you have a question, please let me know. Chisom, you don't have a question today.
No question
Okay,
yet. I mean, I'm
me
enjoying the lecture.
then continue with my question. Okay, let me continue with my question. And my second question, Prof, is that you kind of argue that often that posthumanism requires cultural readiness in some of your works. Can you hear me? Hello?
Say it again, could you please? I couldn't quite understand.
Okay, yes. You kind of argue often in some of your works that posthumanism requires cultural readiness. And how can African societies rooted in communal ethics, spirituality, and biodiverse knowledge and biology develop a culturally grounded framework for human enhancement that avoids Western biases, yet supports life extension innovation?
Yeah, great issue.
Yeah.
So firstly, I'm presenting, for example, Eurotranshumanism. Eurotranshumanism means that it's not Eurocentric. It doesn't claim that it's valid all over the world, but it means I'm just describing my situatedness. And with that situatedness, I'm entering into the discourse, and I'm see, look, these are the results of my reflections. And then I've encountered thinkers, for example, who've got a grounding in Ubuntu. And then you enter in the discourse and you make suggestions, and Ubuntu, which has got a more of a relational grounding, a more communal, relational, religious grounding. And then you see, look, these are the results of my reflections. And you wonder, then you can wonder, what happens in the engagement? Is there a constructive interference, or is it a destructive interference? If you see there is a resonance which gets created, and the resonance is sort of constructive and it leads to further insight, and you think, oh, well, that is maybe something which is, typical for US American discourse, but it doesn't make sense within our own cultural circumstances. But in different contexts, it might say, look, what I've come to the understanding, for example, with the suggestion that we need to enforce the digital data collection, and that could be something maybe which also works, within a communal, relational circumstances, with a more grounding in Ubuntu, where you say, no, we care for each other. We've got like the relationary, where people are their relevance depending on their role within the community. But in the end, what really matters is the flourishing of the community. And the flourishing of the community, one of the central factors of the community is health. Because this is what whenever, no matter in which continent, no matter in which country, surveys and psychological analysis have been generated, have been realized, what came out was basically increased health span is of relevance for the great majority of the people living there. And then within the community, how can we realize that back? We can all contribute. We can all contribute as a community. So why don't we simply, we build a firewall around our country. We don't make it so easy for other countries to get hold of the data, but we want to make sure we collect our own data. We collect our own data, we store, maybe we could make it legally obligatory to enforce the data collection concerning genetic data collection. Once someone is born, you directly collect the person's digital data, and it gets stored. Maybe with respect in a blockchain technology. It gets stored, and from then on, you've got your own digital identity, which gets connected with your biological, with your genetic identity. And on that basis, you can build up an enormous amount of treasure, an enormous amount of health information, genetic information. And with that information, you've got value. And you've got value and the question is, in whose interest are such data center, health data centers? In whose interest are such genetic data centers? We need to make sure that it's not in the interest maybe of the political leaders in order to repress the citizens, but we need to make sure that the finances generated by such health data centers, then you can sell them to industries, to the health industry, to political decision makers outside of your country. And as a consequence, the money which gets generated on that basis, the money can be used to pay for research and development. The money can be used to pay for maybe a universal healthcare system within the country. The money can be used to build, to make clean water available, to make it sanitary expenses need to be taken care of. So to rethink, so in a communal Ubuntu tradition, one could make it obligatory, basically, universal digital data collection could be seen if presented in the appropriate manner. It could be made available as an obligation, and then, but it needs to be guaranteed that the finances which are generated on that basis, they are really in the interest of the people. They are interest of the local people. It's not that the political leaders benefit from it by financially, or that the external, or that the tech companies in the States, or maybe from China, they benefit primarily from it. So if they take or they produce and they take the data, need to make sure that it's mandated that the data always stay in the local, in the countrywide data centers. And on that basis, you can take, Ubuntu actually works in your, I'm now focusing solo Ubuntu, but there are many other traditions as well. But like a communal, relational understanding of Ubuntu might make it very helpful to actually stress that we as a community need to take care of each other, and thus we give away our digital data, and with the digital data, we can actually benefit financially enormously, which can then again be invested in research development, or just in understanding how the genetic codes in the local community are given, and how which treatments best apply within the sector. So it is understanding digital data is in the interest of the community, and showing that sharing digital data, that maybe making it obligatory from birth onwards, to give away the digital data, the genetic data, could be a scene where actually Ubuntu works in your favor, because the countries who've benefited most, who've like had the best type of success in the past 60, 70 years, who went from really poor to flourishing, like China or South Korea, they are the ones who rethought, who maybe jumped and didn't consider a lot of other technology, and went right to the cutting edge. They focused on the advantages. They were working hard, created the infrastructure, and then focused on their self-interest. And this is something which, in particular, in a more communal structure, like Ubuntu, it could actually work much better than in a liberal society.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really extensive. I really appreciate your insights. Thank you again, professors, for your clarity, your depth, and the intellectual sharpness. You've been doing this over and over the years. Like, we really appreciate. I really thank you. I'm going to call you back again next year for a more broader conversation, and then welcome on board. Officially, I'm going to welcome you. Maybe when we update some information to our Afrolongevity Advisory Board, Educational
Wonderful.
Board.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Many thanks for your kind. It's been an enormous pleasure for me to being with you, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing our exchanges on our intellectual engagement. Afrolongevity is an absolutely enormously wonderful project. So congrats, and all your energies and the efforts you put into it. I mean, you're doing actually a really great job. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to being in contact with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you guys. Take care. So we jump into our next presentation. Joe Biden, are you there? Sorry. Are you ready?
Yes, we're here and ready. Yes.
Hello. IOC.
Hello, Joe.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're muted. You're
No.
muted.
No, we're not muted.
Yes, I can hear you,
Hi.
but I can't see you.
Our camera is on.
I can
Yeah, I
see
can't
them.
see you. Do you have something to share? You have slides? Let me see.
We don't have slides, but we're here. We have us. We have I can post the agenda in the chat. Shall I do that?
No, I don't know. Let me make you a co-host so that if you have something to share, you can share.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Guys, thank you so much for making it possible and for being here. I don't know if the internet is really acting up or what. I don't know what the problem is, but be that as it may, this event must happen, and we are going to make it happen. Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear
my
you.
Internet acting up or what?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
I hear you
Okay.
very well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, Justro, for always being there to support us, guys. These are one of the biggest players in revolution against aging and death. James is very humble. He's a very humble man, so you can see he's very calm. And some of you must have heard or seen me talk about the Coalition for Radical Life Extension. He is the brain behind that. And he's the brain behind the revolution against aging and death. And this other handsome Arsenal fan there, this handsome Arsenal fan. So he is the strategist, anything that has to do with the marketing, packaging. He knows how to cook idea and translate it to reality. So that's what we do relatively in Arsenal too. And we are a very organized team. So yeah, he's an Arsenal fan. So today they're going to be sharing with us what it means to organize a movement as such in Africa, which is what we are doing, what we started with the educational program. And I'm going to yield the mic back to them for them to do a more detailed introduction, because sometimes we get inspired by the experience that they must have gathered all through the years, and then what they have done and how they are doing, and why they think we can collaborate and do things better. Because you recall a few weeks ago, I did a program organized by them. They invited me to speak because we are looking for a way of strengthening the coalition and the movement, and Afrolongevity is part of the Coalition for Radical Life Extension. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, OC.
Thank you, OC.
Yeah, great to be collaborating with you again, and to be connecting with all of you who are interested in Afrolongevity, which is I think we just feel like longevity. If you're not working on longevity, what are you doing? What is it? What else is there to do? Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and we have a few areas we want to talk about. As OC said, I'm the director of communications. James is the executive director of the Coalition for Radical Life Extension. We put on RadFest. We just did our 10th event. It's a global event. People come from all over the world, and we're activists. Yeah. I'm not a scientist. I'm a writer. James isn't a scientist, but he's a leader and a community builder and a speaker. And yeah, so
well, let me say, Joe, I think so. Yeah, thank you for having us on, OC, and everybody that's on here. We feel really grateful to have this time with you, and very blessed. This is one of the, if not the greatest conversation to me on earth right now. we're all faced with the trauma and tyranny of aging and death on this planet. And it's a issue that we need to be able to change that and break the barriers that have kept us from being fully who we are as human beings. And this topic, it transcends any boundaries, race, or whatever that we sometimes conjure up that aren't really real. The reality is we're all human beings, and we need each other. And that's a great thing. That's a strength, not a weakness. And I'm, like I say, feel blessed to have this time with all of you and want to talk more about, and we will express more here and hear your thoughts too, of course, about our collaboration and what that means and what that looks like. The Coalition for Medical Life Extension stands for that. Our purpose in even forming it in 2016 was to galvanize the longevity community, bring us all together, because we can go a lot further when we're working together and faster. So I'm very excited about this day, this time with you, and we'll see what I think a lot's going to come out of it for all of us.
Yeah.
And appreciate everybody that's participating in this and speaking in this. It's where you might say the vanguard of a movement that is time is due. This is the time right now. We've always put our lives always away in some dispensation away from us, in one sense that we would someday we would have everything that we want. Well, today's the day. Today's the day for us to manifest the magnificent life that we all feel in our bodies, and it starts from here. So again, I'm very grateful to have this time with you.
Yeah, and I would say super longevity is a social justice issue. Most people view it as a healthcare issue, and it is, but it's really a social justice issue because we will never, ever get the proper care and treatment for human beings that every single human being deserves until we get out from under the pressure of survival anxiety that is the core driver of all social injustice. Because no matter how much people have, they never feel like they have enough because they don't have enough time. And so we see longevity as the key change agent, not just for healthcare, and we'll talk a little more about that, but for society as a whole and history. And so that's why it's the pivotal issue of the day.
Yeah, and yeah, well said, Joe. And the first I'll say topic here in our outline is how is super longevity different than longevity? And I think that's important to get. Longevity in itself, I mean, it's great. More people all the time are wanting to be healthier, live longer, but they want to still live within the parameters of what the evolution has provided for us, and that's a limited amount of time. So they want to live healthy as long as until they die. So that's longevity. Super longevity is breaking those barriers, is going past those limitations, is going to the possibilities, which I think are very real, to unlimited lifespans. This is the new world. It's great to live as long as you can and healthy, but at the same time, if you have an end, then you're still in a box. You're still in a prison. And you may decorate that prison and find all kinds of coping mechanisms to deal with it, but you're still what we call on death row. And so the trauma of that is very strong in our bodies. We don't even understand sometimes how that traumatizes us because we've adapted to it so much. And so bringing about what Joe was talking about here of the era of creativity, instead of getting out of survival, is monumental to us as human beings, because we are constantly sabotaging our lives because of this, the trauma that we've experienced in it. And we're in survival, so we're constantly competing against ourselves and one another. But when we get out of survival, which super longevity is about, because then we're going to create a value of human life like we've never seen before, then we get into the era of creativity and abundance. And that's really our inheritance. This is innately in us, whether we realize it or not. The ability to live and that primal scream for life is innately in us. So that's so vital, I think, for us to get as people who are really going for life, is that it's not enough just to have another 10, 20 years. and still face the same tyranny down the line. We're not just about putting off that tyranny. We're about ending it completely. So that's the difference, though, between longevity and super longevity.
Yeah, that's great. And as we're speaking here, I just want to say if anybody has any questions
Yes.
that we can address specifically, we'd love to see them. So you can just drop them in the chat and we'll keep an eye out for that. Questions that relate to our experience or how we could possibly create greater collaboration. We're based in Arizona in the United States, but we're a global coalition. And as James said, if this is the movement that transcends all differences between people. And so anyway, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to share with us, we'd love to see them. So yeah, our next topic as we're talking here is longevity medicine. And why start? And so, from our perspective, looking at Afrolongevity, it's a brilliant movement, but also it's very timely because we see a healthcare system here in the United States that is deeply entrenched in what is commonly called sick care. And there's a new medicine that's coming that is not sick care. But it's very unlikely that the institutions that deliver healthcare currently will be able to make those shifts. And so, or if they do, it will be kicking and screaming because someone will force the market to wake up and do it a better way. Now in Africa, where you don't have the medical infrastructure as developed as the United States, in a sense, you have an opportunity to get it right the first time.
Exactly.
Because
not get entrenched in the old ways.
yeah, which is in its own way a unique perspective that Afrolongevity has that longevity in the United States doesn't really have. So I think that's something to really take to heart. And what I love about Osanakachi and Brenda Ramakapelwa and Afrolongevity is that you guys aren't waiting and you're not taking a back seat to anybody, and you're creating something from what we call spontaneous generation. It's like something out of nothing, because that's really where newness comes from. So I really salute you guys for doing that, but I also see that there's and I'd like to hear more from you guys what you think about this idea that because there's less healthcare infrastructure, potentially you have an opportunity to establish a more longevity-friendly healthcare infrastructure.
Yeah, and so speaking of any questions or comments you may have, if you don't have any at the moment, which you may or may not, we're happy to answer anything or interact with you at any level here. You can also email me actually personally at jrstroh, STROLE at gmail.com. That's jrstroh at gmail.com. I like to get those personal emails with questions, comments, ideas, or whatever, and we can chat then later, even after this event. But as Joe brought out, so longevity medicine, and I want to be kind of elaborate on that a little bit, is the best because then you're looking at building the immune system. Not just reacting on some type of symptom you have and trying to patch it up and then never correcting the problem, the core problem underneath, which is something going on with the immune system or something going on with your body in some respect. So that's why longevity medicine is the best. I would say for me, for example, here in the States, if I have something that comes up as an issue, I first look at or go to a doctor that's more of a holistic doctor that understands that he's going to look at first what's going on underneath, not just patch up the symptom, but take a look at my blood work, take a look at what I need to build, maybe some area that might be weak in my immune system, my thymus or whatever it might be, and then build on that and build that up. And at the same time, you find out for the most part that symptom will go away as you address the underlying issue. And that's why longevity medicine is the best, because then you're also building the body at the same time, not tearing it down, not taking drugs that have 12 different side effects on your body. And so it's pretty, I'll say, a no-brainer in that context to get that we need to start addressing our medical needs from that longevity aspect. It's the best medicine in the world. And that doesn't mean it doesn't discount the allopathic methods or allopathic method at all. It just means that we look first for those underlying causes. And then, if we need to take a drug or we need to take something that's absolutely necessary, we can do that, but not just dump drugs into us because we have some condition. And this is how it is here in the United States. So many of the people are just dumping one drug after another. They're taking 12, 15 drugs. I know a lot of people that are doing this. They have side effects then on that drug. Then they have to take another drug to handle the side effects of that drug. So we want to get away from that kind of medicine for the most part. We take a drug if it's absolutely necessary, but only when we aren't able to, say, mitigate the issue that can many times be taken care of just by some holistic approach.
Where did they go, Emma?
I'm sorry?
So there's a question here on whether there are efforts to incorporate longevity studies in our basic, secondary, and even tertiary schools. Is it being taught in medical schools?
Yeah,
it's a good question, because unfortunately, a lot of the doctors that people go to on a daily basis don't have longevity education, and so you have to kind of pick and choose your doctors. We talk about this. We also help to lead a community organization called People Unlimited, and we talk about this at People Unlimited a lot. Which, by the way, People Unlimited meets weekly, and you can join online. It's a great
just Google peopleunlimitedinc.com.
It's a great community to connect with on a regular basis, which is making me think of something. Like, one thing about being a longevity activist is you have to make yourself sustainable. Okay, so how long have you been doing this?
Well, 50 years.
Okay, I've been doing this 30 years. And sometimes it seems like slow going.
Yes.
And but it's the long game. It's the ultimate long game. Is super longevity. So you have to make yourself sustainable.
Live long enough to live forever.
Yeah, as an as an activist. And so that means really finding people that support your vision and that help you maintain your vision, because there's a lot of obstacles and there's a lot of ways to feel discouraged, and death is an institution. I mean, death is an ultimate institution, and we're looking to move out of the way this huge thing, and so it's important to connect with people, and it's important to take care of yourself. So to be a longevity activist, it's really important that you give to yourself the things you need to have longevity in your life, because it's going to take longevity. It's going to take longevity to see this through.
Yeah.
So
I think we got a couple other questions here, Joe.
Yeah. Let me. I'm going to take this. Well, let's hear from Augustine, who's got a hand raised. Go ahead, Augustine. Can we hear from him?
Very much. Good evening. My question has to do with concern about the kind of background we are here in Nigeria. It's a very religious society, and when you are discussing the issue of longevity, you are tagged as someone who is planning to play God. They already say that, we have a lifespan based on the Bible. So any argument or any discussion that has to talk about life extension is generally looked at in so many ways. So in your own experience out there, how do you convince people that longevity is actually should be a part of God's plan for mankind? Because many times the arguments are that, are you going to be God? You're playing God. Man is trying to play God by talking about longevity. Even though these people also, if you ask them whether they want to live for long, They are going to tell you that they want to live for long and healthy too. But they are scared of the fact that their religion is telling them that by the time you want to live longer than it's necessary, you are playing God already. So how do you express yourself? How do you convince your participants on how to manage this situation?
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Great question. Thank you.
great conversation. And yes, I'm Augustine. Yeah, so we run into this. Really, I understand what you're saying. You're running into where you're at. Actually, this is an issue all over the world. Uh, religious people, unfortunately, limiting themselves because of the religion. And the reality is that for me and my experience in it, for example, I was in Israel some time back speaking, and I was speaking on unlimited life. And afterwards, an individual who was actually very excited about what I was saying came up to me, and he was speaking Hebrew, which I had to get translation for. And he said, "Oh, I like what you're saying, but it's not God's will. Religion is not God's will that you live forever. You're being God." And so then I said to him, and this is the reality, I said, "Well, didn't God create us in his image?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." He says, "Well, God's immortal, so he wants us to be immortal." And that's one of the big missing links here that people miss. Jesus was the example of who we were supposed to be, not just somebody we were to follow and admire. He sent his disciples out to do the same work and said there would be people coming to do greater work than he did. And what was he really speaking about? Jesus was really speaking about unlimited life in the body. Before he came along, there was always the spirit life, the people dying and their spirit going on. When he came along, he was the redemption of the body. He spoke about eat of my flesh, drink of my blood. And these are things that I've been in communication with a lot of Christians that I run into in the States. And many of them are beginning to open up and see that, yes, there's more here than what they're being taught, that Jesus said he was to fulfill the law of Moses, meaning everything before him was what it was and old, and he was to bring the new to the world, the newness being life more abundant. And he spoke about that. He said when they asked him, and Nicodemus asked him, "Why are you here?" He said, "I'm here to bring heaven on earth. I'm here to bring, again, the kingdom here on earth," meaning the heaven on earth. And Nicodemus said, "Oh, well, how do I get there?" And he said, "Well, you have to be reborn again. You have to be born out of this old world into a new world." And Nicodemus said, "Well, how can I be reborn? How can I go back in my mother's womb and be reborn?" Because he didn't understand what Jesus was saying. But point being that Jesus was talking about a kingdom here on earth now, not some dispensation away. And that's the situation right now. People couldn't see it then because of all the strife and the religious indoctrination that they were taught that they had to die and be forgiven for their sins and go to heaven. And so, but Jesus made it very clear that the kingdom is to be on earth now, and that all it takes is beginning to respond to that immortal lineage inside your own body. So this is the conversation that's really important in the world because it affects so many people. But that's how I approach it here and approach it around the world, and that the real fulfillment of God and the fulfillment of Jesus is for us to really take on the divinity of our bodies. We're meant to be divine human beings, each and every one of us, not just worshiping something outside of ourselves. Jesus was a model of a body that we're all meant to take on in ourselves.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And to be clear, I wouldn't advise you to try to convince anybody.
No.
What we are doing is connecting with people who are asking questions and want more, just like you guys. That's who we are. We're at the forward edge of this revolution, and we're looking for other people who are open to that. So I wouldn't struggle with anybody, but there is the spirit of life, the spirit of immortality is in the religious tradition. It just a lot of people just haven't seen it.
Yeah, and like Joe said, it's not about struggle, like you said, but it is about conversation. I find no issue with these people and just having a conversation. I open it up with them in a warm way, in a respectful way, not trying to make them wrong or right. We have to stir these conversations, and so again, it's not about struggle, but it is about opening up and being able to communicate with people. If we don't begin to have a voice in this world, then that voice is going to be drowned up by all the death consciousness in the world. So that's why I speak out so much and want to encourage other people to do, not enforcing anything on anybody, but respectful, passionate conversations.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're going to a church here in the next few weeks with that we were invited to talk about this subject. And we're entering into these conversations with these people, and not in an offensive way, but in a very respectful way and a constructive way. And it's a beautiful conversation to get into.
Yeah, I think it's important not to be, there's a lot of people in our movement get really frustrated with religion. I think it's important not to go that way. There's great people in religion, and we just need to find them.
Yeah, we shouldn't disconnect or alienate anybody.
Yeah.
We want people. So we need to, Jesus said, get used to different, meaning, that we need to accept everybody's different. And they have different beliefs and different religion. But when we accept them, then we can open up in a conversation with them that can go somewhere. And that's going to make the difference. And those conversations, again, aren't about an argument or a debate. They're more about exploration together and letting these people know that there's more. There's possibly more. I'm not trying to, I tell them, discount what you're experiencing, but I want to talk with you about something more that we're missing, that we could accomplish together.
The reality is most people have not even had the opportunity to even think about taking charge of their longevity.
That's right.
Or even think that aging, that there's plasticity to aging, and it's that we don't all age the same way, and we can impact that. Like, people haven't even had the opportunity to start thinking about it, and so that's what we're here to give them. But here's another question or comment from Dear Chisholm. Can we hear from you?
Well, thank you so much, SARS. I'm enjoying the conversation. I just wanted to say something in response to the question being asked, not necessarily a question. In the series we had, I think it was the day before yesterday, by Professor Aubrey de Grey, he said something related to the question they asked. He said that there's one thing that is common in all of the religions of the world, and that is the fact that they are telling you how to reduce suffering. That's the common thing. Hindu, Christian, everything they do is just to help us to see one another like ourselves, to help them, to help people to reduce suffering. And just like you meet a doctor if you're sick, the doctor helps you to get well. So also when we talk about longevity, we want to help people not just to live longer, but to live healthier and happier. So it's not more of adding more years to people's life, but adding more life to people's years. So it's more of the life itself, not the numbers. But the good thing is, when we think about health span, how to extend our health, we are also extending our life, because if you are healthier, you would also live longer. So the focus here is not just the long life or immortality or to live forever. No, it's just like a doctor will help a sick person. But we don't just want people to get sick first before we help them. We want them to even live healthier. There are things that can be avoided. They can and they should be avoided before the onset of diseases or whatever it is that would cause aging or sickness or even death. So just to share a little from what I've learned so far, especially from Professor Aubrey de Grey, he did so well. And to our speakers today too, they are doing so well. Thank you so much. And I'm learning very, very much from you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. So I want to reply to Sonny, his question on the chat about People Unlimited. So People Unlimited is a community of immortalists and longevity, people passionate about longevity, that meets every week. And
Twice a week.
Twice a week. And we have online, and you can join online. And it's real people talking about really embracing the value of their body, what they're doing for their longevity, how they're getting out of the stress of survival and survival anxiety, and really energizing one another to live. And we don't want to wait for the whole world to come around to a new quality of life, which is what super longevity is. It's a new quality of life. And so People Unlimited is we're just doing that. And yeah, you're invited to join.
Yeah, so we meet twice a week, and we meet one weekend out of every month also.
What platform is it? What platform is People Unlimited?
I'm sorry?
What platform is it? Platform, the People Unlimited.
It's Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go on peopleunlimited.com.
Peopleunlimited.inc.com.
And you can see the schedule, and you can see how to link into us, how to connect with the events. If you have an issue, just email us, and then we will send you a link to hook up. And that's every Monday and Friday of every week, and 1 week another one. Now we have a weekend event coming up this weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, if you're interested at all to hook up to that. And we're always welcome you. It's an interactive program like we're having now. We'll talk. You can engage with us. We see you on a screen. We can hear you good. It's a very, very good system. So we'll be able to interact with you also on that. And you're welcome anytime. We need to create communities all over and participate. Like we're here with you today. We invite you to join us. And with no boundaries. We're all out for the same life, that the abundant life, and we're all so passionate about it. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we have people who joined from Africa already,
Yeah.
And it's great.
All over the world, actually.
And really, human connection is one of the most sustaining things you can have for longevity. Is to have that connection, and it's one of the most effective right now. We're waiting for technology to catch up, right? But it's something you can do right now.
Well, yeah, and we're very inspirational. They're very inspirational events. We talk very deeply about the immortal mindset, we think is very important, along with all the science. We'll be having science speakers this weekend. Dr. Michael Chan from China. Actually, he's from.
He's from, is it Singapore?
Singapore. No, not Singapore.
Indonesia. I'm sorry,
Anyway,
I can't remember. He's a foremost authority, one of the foremost authorities on stem cell treatments, and he's one of the stem cell pioneers.
So we intermix the science with the inspiration. It's a great, very powerful combination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hear can we hear from Ken Eze?
I just wanted to say quickly the people, the two persons from they are indirectly connected to Afrolongevity. Uko Promise is a member of the
Promise.
People Unlimited. Uko Promise because I got to know more about People Unlimited. I've known about the Radfish and the coalition for a long time. So I got to know about the People's Unlimited through Valerie Handlers. Yeah. So and Valerie who now linked me up for the meeting. I attended like twice, and then Uko Promise, and then Pretty from South Africa. So because of the loads of my work, the meeting time and all that, but it's something that is really interesting and fantastic for people to participate and then learn more, because it's just like a conversation. It's not like a formal thing for you to share freely and how you are building up your life expectancy and what you're doing to improve the quality of your life.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Okay, can we hear from Ken?
Okay, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we hear you.
Hello.
We hear you.
Okay. Right, thank you for your teachings. Now, there is something I want to say. I don't think that religion is our issue in this country. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now, religion is not the major things hindering this program. Now, the issue, from my own little experience that I have experienced from the experience I've got so far, I think poverty is the main issue. The main issue, because more than 120 million persons are living below poverty line, in multidimensional poverty. And so when you tell somebody to go and to eat quality food, There is no, the person will find it easier to use just 500 naira to buy bread and eat than to spend 10,000 naira to cook a pot of soup. So most of the people that I've encountered, they keep telling me that it is so difficult, it's so expensive to cook good food and all those things. So the main problem you are having here is poverty, not religion and not any other issue. So because people cannot afford quality food, people can't afford all those things. So, and I think there is also need to partner with radio stations and churches, so that at least from time to time, even if it's once in every week, so there will be a jingle, even if it is 1 hour or 2 hours dedicated to a radio program to teach people about longevity related topics. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
that. Thank you for that
thank you.
input. You're entirely right. I think really what we're dealing with is all these different factors. Belief systems around death, poverty, just not having the education overall of what is available, and that's what we want to do is get the education out there more, get the word out about the great opportunities in longevity. We want to get those out to the world, and I think we'll see some big changes as we can do that.
Yeah, poverty, of course, is a obstacle.
I just sorry.
It's an obstacle to talking
Yeah,
about the mortality with people. What I think is important is that we don't put our conversation on hold until we have all these problems solved. We've never solved poverty in this world. Never, ever. I had a friend who was very excited about super longevity, and then the war broke out in the Middle East, the latest war, and he got completely gone on that. We've never solved poverty in this world. We've never solved war in this world. Never, ever. And so really we need to shift into a new model of living. And that's what super longevity is about. So I agree with you, it's an obstacle, but I think it's really important that we don't put longevity on hold because we have poverty.
Well, that's why this conversation is so important, because the reality is we're never going to solve those problems because until we solve aging and death, because
Exactly.
aging and death is the root cause of all these conditions. The limitation that we live in,
Yeah.
people, the limited life. So people struggle to have their immortality and some type of legacy and some type of identity for themselves. And it becomes greed after a while. But when we begin to understand and experience extended lifespans with health and vitality, we're going to understand and have a greater value of human life. We're going to value each other more. We're not going to be so fast to destroy ourselves and one another.
Right.
So the root cause. So we're never going to have in poverty until the tyranny of aging and death is resolved.
That's right.
Yeah. So I wanted to add quickly that religion is actually the problem. When people say that, it's about poverty, like actually the highest form of poverty is not actually material poverty, but poverty of the mind, right? When you look at it closely, where people try to frame longevity as something of the elite, I tend not to agree with them, because we're trying to model something, Afrolongevity, that most people don't even know. Fruits and food in their season is difficult now in Nigeria for people to tell which fruit is in the season. It's difficult for people to tell, their indigenous food, traditional food, and when and how to cook them. And people spend more time going to TikTok and YouTube to learn some biohacking, which is already infused or integrated in their traditional lives and in their indigenous lifestyle, right? So religion influences how people interpret, accept, or reject longevity concepts. And I tried to explain this. I've done that in one of Natasha's events, where I tried to use the idol of Francis Bacon to help people understand the psychological barriers that religion plays. Because when we introduce longevity science rooted in biology, data experiments, religion can shape the community's mindsets, through the four subtle forces, idol of the tribes, which represent the universal human tendency to favor intuition over evidence. It's common there. People do that. So they don't want to look at what you're saying because they already know God will provide. And what are you trying to say? I talked about one event that I when I was invited in South Africa after presenting my papers, and someone was like, hello, sir, I have a question. So if I do all these things, if the car hits me, won't I die? And I try to answer that that's not what we are talking about. We're just trying to say be safe, be good, live healthy, be fine. Accident will be there. Things like things, natural disasters, it can come in different forms, but as we evolve better, we transcend some of these biological, environmental, and other complexities. So we should just know how to disambiguate our minds, and understand that it is in our nature. It's in our nature to live better. It's in our nature. Nobody wants to die. If you use the philological lens to look at how humanity evolved, we evolved. We discovered medicine because we didn't want bacteria to kill us. We discovered buildings because we didn't want animals to come and kill us. We discovered a whole lot of things, fencing, because we didn't want this. So it is in our nature. When you look at the evolution of humankind, you understand that survival is the first principle. Survival, be it biological survival, be it ecological survival, and all that. So that is what these are factors affecting our longevity divide or life expectancy. So we just have to find a way to communicate that, and to not make people feel that it is something for the elite, or you need to have certain amount of money before you start practicing longevity.
Yeah, it's true. It's been characterized that way a lot in the U.S. Media, like it's something for the wealthy.
For the wealthy, yes.
Not
understanding that. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, currently most of the best longevity practices are not expensive, for a middle class American.
Well, not only that, we need to understand that maybe some of these protocols are, and they are, some of them, but not all of them by any means, expensive. We have to understand it's like the cell phone. It was very expensive at one time, and it took people who had the money buying it to drive the prices down. So we need to be grateful for the people who say have the money to any innovation, to buy it at first, to make it possible for all of us to have it on the market. This is how it works. So we shouldn't begrudge something that costs a lot of money. Sometimes it costs a lot to produce that innovation, like a gene therapy, for example, but then again, eventually we'll all be able to afford a gene therapy. Already the prices are being driven down on gene therapies because more and more people are using it.
So I would encourage, like I said earlier, don't argue, don't struggle. This is after 30 years and learning the hard way, don't struggle with people who are not interested in what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But just keep talking until you find people who are interested, because
Yeah.
we're all here, and there's many, many more. I think religion will adapt. I think religion has always adapted. I don't think religion is the prime mover here. I think religion is a coping mechanism within the ecology of death. And I think as we extend lifespans, I think religion will just say, yeah, they'll adapt like they always do. So I think for us, it's about keeping our eyes on the prize, right?
Well said, Joe.
Other comments or questions? I mean, we mentioned this earlier. So the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, we're interested in global collaboration. And so if you have projects that you think that we could collaborate on, we're interested in hearing about it.
Any other questions at all or comments? I think we're pretty close to the end of our time.
No, I was just repeating what I've already said. Someone said that religion markets false hope to the masses. and the ideology produces unhealthy dependency on unseen beings and spirits instead of being proactive in solving their day-to-day problem. All of these essentially creates fertile ground for poverty and fissure in any given society. For the most part, for the most
We lost you, OC. Okay, well, I think OC's connection went out. Anything else you think we should add, James, that we haven't covered already? I think we have a few more minutes here.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes. Well, I think a key thing that, and we've said this, but I think it's important to reiterate that we're to spend our energy and time on productivity of this new world, not confronting, or it's one thing to get in conversations with other people, anybody in that matter, that we run into that are, in-depth conversations, putting out the word of letting them know, because a lot of people I run into don't even know about super longevity and what's available in it. So I'll get in a conversation. Some of them open up more and some of them don't. But it's important for us to express, all of us, what we are feeling with everybody, but not struggle with anybody. We need to get totally out of the world of struggle. We're not going to change this. It's important we're not going to change this world. We are about creating a new world.
Exactly.
All right. That's very important to get. So I want to, if anything, the final message I want to leave to you from my heart is don't struggle with this world. It's unchangeable. And Jesus spoke about that. He said there's a new world that we're to give our attention to. And that's this new world that we feel so passionately about in our bodies. And we can have, I say it all the time now, we can have heaven here on earth. And heaven and on earth here for me is not some nebulous concept of streets paved with gold. It's us living with vitality and strength in an unlimited way, with joy and abundance, and drawing to us everything we need, inheriting that which is here for us in this world, and not struggling for it anymore, getting out of survival and getting into creativity.
Yeah, I love that. And we're longevity advocates because we believe and we feel, I would say even more than believe, we feel viscerally that life can be new, that we don't just have to repeat the form and the model of life that's been for human beings. And I think that's a really a sustain. If you can call that faith.
Yeah.
I think that's a really sustaining experience to have. And not only personally, I feel like not only that life can be new, but it's the only life really worth living. So I would encourage you all, first of all, I commend you for being involved in this program, for connecting with OC, and for your comments and questions today, and for your interest. I invite you to visit us at People Unlimited. I put the URL in the chat, don't let that feeling of the promise of newness go out in your body.
Yeah.
Because life can be new, and it needs to be new. It's very unlikely that we will see justice for history. It's very unlikely that we'll see the wrongs of history righted. We just have to create a new history. We have to create, like I think of Africa. It's very unlikely Africa will ever see justice from the colonial forces that exploited Africa.
Anytime in the near future, anyway.
It's very unlikely that these things will happen. It's very unlikely that I think of other conflicts in the world that seem to be eternal. It's very unlikely that there'll be justice in those scenarios. But life can be new, and we can create a new model of living where human life has absolute value. And I think that's really worth working towards.
Yeah. And now, thank you, John. I'll just say in closing that we're able to share. Look, this has been great, and thank you all for your attendance here and your participation. But this is really a small portion of our conversation. All of us, we know that. So it's important we continue this conversation
That's
as
right.
much as we can. Be together. Be in people in limited events. Anytime OC has an event like this, we'll be on it. You can let us know if you've got something you'd like us to be on with you. And the faster, more we do this, the more this word's going to get out to the world, the more people we're going to draw. And so there's so much more to share. I mean, we just shared as all of you know, we shared a very small portion of what really there is to share with each other and to grow in, because we're growing, we're growing, and we're evolving ourselves without dying.
That's right.
All right, we're no longer subject to the process of evolution, and so this is a huge thing for us to be able to be in touch with. So I thank you all and bless you all, and I hope you just have a beautiful rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Live
much.
long, prosper.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys did not see the hand that he made. The live long and prosper hand. So okay, thank you so much, Joe and James, for that wonderful interaction. You guys have been very passionate about Africa. Guys, did you listen to when James Stroh said that you've been in this for over 40 years? Yeah, been in this for over 40 years, right, James?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe, how many years, Joe?
30? Yeah.
30.
3-0. 3-0.
Interesting timer.
I'm ready for Arsenal to win the Premier League again.
It's all right. So
That'd be a long time.
You gotta be an immortal for that.
You have to stay alive.
yes.
Be an immortal
Yes.
if you're an Arsenal fan.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, OC. You're amazing, and
Yeah.
we're happy to help you anytime.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
love you, and we love Africa.
Thank you. I know that. I know that
Thank
you're an
you.
Afri
Thank
fan.
you so much.
Take
I
care.
appreciate it. Thank you.
The
Bye.
best.
Yeah. Good night, guys. Take care. See you tomorrow.